Ankita Robin and welcome to SG Global News. From the upcoming march of thousands of pro-life advocates in Washington, D.C. on January 24th to the alarming findings of the 2025 Global Persecution Index, we have many stories to cover. Thousands of pro-life advocates are set to march for the protection of life in Washington, D.C. on January 24th. The March for Life is the largest annual human rights demonstration in the world. Bethany Hamilton, a professional surfer who overcame significant challenges and takes pride in her roles as a mother and wife, will be the keynote speaker at the 52nd edition of this annual event.
Thousands of pro-life advocates from across the United States and abroad will gather in Washington, D.C. on January 24th for the 52nd Annual March for Life. Recognized as the largest annual human rights demonstration in the world, the March for Life brings together women, men, young people and children who uphold the inherent dignity of life from the moment of conception. This year's theme, Life, Why We March, is designed to inspire pro-life advocates by encouraging reflection on the fundamental truth that every human life, born and unborn, is beautiful, possesses unique dignity, and is deserving of protection. Bethany Hamilton, the professional surfer who famously overcame the loss of her left arm to a 14-foot tiger shark, will serve as this year's keynote speaker. Bethany, who also runs a mother-daughter mentorship program called the Ohana Experience, describes being a wife and mother as the greatest joy of her life. For 52 years, pro-life advocates have marched on Capitol Hill, rallying each January to commemorate the anniversary of the Supreme Court's 1973 Roe v. Wade decision, which legalized abortion in all 50 states. The first March for Life reportedly drew 20,000 participants, and attendance has grown significantly over the decades. Although the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022 with its decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, an estimated 900,000 abortions continue to be performed annually in the United States. This number is projected to decline by approximately 200,000 per year in a post-Roe era. However, March for Life organizers emphasize their commitment to not only changing laws at both the state and federal levels, but also fostering a cultural shift to make abortion unthinkable. The March for Life envisions a world where every life is celebrated, valued, and protected. Organizers have also highlighted the growing importance of state-level pro-life initiatives, as states have become pivotal battlegrounds in the national abortion debate.
Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter is lying in state in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol. The 39th President of the United States is also the longest living president in the nation's history. Widely remembered for his humanitarian efforts after his presidency, he was awarded the 2002 Nobel Peace Prize for his work in peace negotiations, campaigns for human rights, and advocacy for social welfare. Former President Jimmy Carter's body has arrived at the U.S. Capitol, where it will lie in state for the next 3 days. On Thursday, January 9th, his body will be moved to the Washington National Cathedral for a funeral service. Following the service, his remains will be flown back to Georgia, where he'll be interred in his hometown of Plains. The journey to the Capitol began in Georgia, where Carter's casket departed from the Carter Center in Atlanta. It was transported by hearse to Dobbins Air Reserve Base and flown to Washington, D.C. Family members followed on foot as the body was pulled by a horse-drawn caisson for the final portion of the funeral procession down Pennsylvania Avenue, echoing Carter's walk down the boulevard during his 1977 inauguration. Vice President Kamala Harris, members of Congress, and several United States Supreme Court justices were among those who paid their respects to the former president. The 39th President of the United States, who served from 1977 to 1981, died on December 29th at the age of 100. The longest living U.S. president has been in hospice care for nearly 2 years before his death. As president, one of Carter's first acts was issuing an executive order granting unconditional amnesty to Vietnam War draft evaders. His term was marked by economic challenges including inflation, recession, and the 1979 energy crisis. The Iran hostage crisis in the final year of his presidency dealt a severe blow to his re-election campaign, paving the way for Ronald Reagan's 2 terms. Carter's post-presidency, however, was widely celebrated. American journalist Helen Thomas once described him as a nice, decent man, adding that he had proven to be the best past president in terms of compassionate contributions to society. A devout Christian, Carter was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002 for his work in peace negotiations, campaigning for human rights, and advocating for social welfare. 2 million Poles participated in traditional Epiphany processions held across the country. The Three Kings processions on Epiphany are a cherished tradition in many nations, including Italy, Venezuela, Cuba, and Kazakhstan. About 2 million people participated in this year's traditional Three Kings processions held on the Feast of the Epiphany in 905 cities throughout Poland. On the feast day, Pope Francis greeted the participants and extended his blessings, stating that through this initiative they bore witness to their faith in churches and on the streets of Warsaw and many Polish cities as well as abroad. The colorful and vibrant processions commemorating the worship of the Christ child by the Three Kings have been organized in towns and cities in Poland since 2008. The processions are also held in countries like Italy, Germany, Great Britain, France, the USA, Venezuela, Cuba, Cameroon, Chad, Nigeria, Rwanda, and Kazakhstan. Every year, the processions, which are open to all, are attended by the young and the old, many of whom dress up in kingly attire. In addition to schools and parishes, entire town communities get involved in the celebrations, rejoicing and singing carols and traditional Christmas songs. Metropolitan Archbishop of Warsaw, Adrian Galbas, told Vatican News, quote, "Such a large number of people taking part in this event shows how much we need to experience this holiday in Poland and outside of Poland. It expresses the essence of this holiday that we all want to come to Christ in order to bow down to Him, and this bow does not humiliate us, but on the contrary elevates us." End quote. A family of 3 was brutally burned to death in Uganda for embracing Christianity. Although the Ugandan constitution guarantees religious freedom, converts to Christianity are frequently targeted. The recent victims were former Muslims who had converted to Christianity in November 2024. A Muslim family who had accepted Christ in November was burned to death on December 26th in eastern Uganda. According to a report by Morning Star News, 64-year-old Kaiga Muhammad, his wife Savuya Kaiga, and their 26-year-old son Swaga Amuza Kaiga had put their faith in Christ on November 22nd when some Christians shared the gospel at their home. Since Muhammad was a committee member at the local mosque, the family decided to keep their conversion secret. However, some locals saw him leaving a Christian worship service in a nearby village and informed the area chairperson. Muhammad and his family were asked to renounce their faith or face dire consequences. On December 26th, an enraged Muslim community charged Muhammad and his family with blasphemy, set their house on fire with gas, and all 3 members were charred to death. Uganda's constitution allows religious freedom, including the right to propagate one's faith and convert from one faith to another. However, according to Open Doors, radical Islam remains the foremost driver of religious persecution in Uganda, and the most intense persecution is targeted against Christian converts. A shocking report from International Christian Concern reveals that more than 300 million Christians face persecution worldwide. The report highlights various forms of persecution, including imprisonment, torture, and assassination. It also specifically draws attention to the ongoing persecution of Catholics in Nicaragua and the rise in anti-Christian violence in India. In the 2025 Global Persecution Index compiled by International Christian Concern, more than 300 million Christians are facing threats of persecution worldwide. Previously known as the Persecutors of the Year report, the new and improved version provides an in-depth analysis of the underlying factors that make each region mentioned increasingly unstable for Christians. Examining every corner of the world, ICC identified the 20 worst countries where levels of persecution are high, noting that extreme authoritarian methods are employed by these governments to subjugate Christians. This year's report specifically highlights the ongoing persecution of Catholics in the Central American country of Nicaragua. Citing a report from the U.S. State Department, the document emphasized how the country's dictator, Daniel Ortega, has weaponized state ministries to silence the Catholic Church by revoking the operating licenses of at least 315 non-profit organizations affiliated with the church. In addition to confiscating church properties, the report also noted the growing number of bishops being exiled by the Ortega administration. Another offender on the list, India, has experienced a stark increase in anti-Christian violence. Tactics such as false accusations under blasphemy and anti-conversion laws, surveillance of Christian worship, and mob violence have been used to discriminate against Christian minorities. ICC also highlighted escalating hostility against Christians in sub-Saharan Africa, particularly in Nigeria and across the Sahel region. The kidnapping of young Christian girls by extremist groups like Boko Haram and the desecration of Coptic Orthodox churches in Egypt have worsened over the year. Despite increased persecution in the listed countries, ICC also emphasized a hopeful trend: resilience and church growth in some of the most oppressive environments such as Iran and Indonesia. That's all for today. Until we meet again, God bless and thank you.